Jordan will start timing.
Alright, I'm Jake Hubert,
I'm Kaylee Popovich.
I'm Jayla Schaefer.
and we asked the question, does racial and ethnic inequality affect a person's potential to move up the social economic scale?
Racial inequality refers to the discrimination based on race and opportunity for socioeconomic advancement or access to goods or services. Factors affecting social mobility is economic, social, cultural, and historical lenses.
From Pew Research, a study shows that 84% of the middle class have higher incomes than their parents. They also show that blacks are more likely to stay in the lower class or drop from the middle class into the lower class. One factor for this is lack of solid education. Only 50% of blacks have access to full range of rigorous courses in their high schools, while 70% of whites have access to tough schedules. Minorities also receive a worse education because blacks are 4 times as likely to have first-year inexperienced teachers, and Latinos are twice as likely as whites. Poor education leads to less and worse jobs, not helping their opportunity to limit the socioeconomic scale. A study done by National Bureau of Economic Research shows that there is racial inequality in the labor market. The research sent out fake applications in Boston and Chicago using identical credentials but with different names. Greg and Emily applications received 50% more callbacks than the applications named Jamal and Lakeisha. The employers also received resumes and the applicants' names to work with. This report shows that discrimination because the employer's decision isn't being based on an interview, but solely on the individual's credentials. Unemployment rates for African Americans have been consistently double than the unemployment rates of whites. Lack of strong education and labor discrimination are 2 major factors affecting black unemployment and in turn hindering their potential to move up the socioeconomic scale.
Another example of racial inequality is seen in college applications through a social and cultural lens. According to highereducation.com, Asian Americans on average get 150 points higher on the SAT than the standard student. This statistic would make it seem it'd be easier for them to get accepted into colleges, but this is not true. 800 plus colleges, including Berkeley, Ohio State University, and UC Santa Cruz, no longer make the SAT a requirement on their applications. Because Asian Americans believe this requirement is what propels them above the average student, they find disregarding this prerequisite detrimental to their application. They believe colleges now look at merit instead of intellect, which puts them to a disadvantage and makes it harder for them to get into schools, so much that according to Kevin Kiley's argument, don't check the box, many Asians no longer check off their ethnicity on their applications. In this day and age, inequality should not be an issue, especially when it comes to an education. A good education is a key factor in being successful in American society, since, as stated by the New York Times, those with a college degree earn 98% more per hour than those who only went to high school. We need to stray from the past and focus on equality for all.
Now, there is a historical factor involved in the issue of inequality. Right now, racial tensions run high as police and protesters stand off in Ferguson, Missouri over the Michael Brown case and in New York over the Eric Garner case. Since there has been a history of racial conflict in the United States, we'll need to work even harder to achieve equality. The KKK is the oldest racist organized group in America, created specifically to terrorize newly emancipated black people. Parts of history, like the KKK, that America isn't exactly proud of, has still managed to affect the present. Since racism and inequality is such a dark part of our history, we don't even want to acknowledge that the ideas still persist into our future, but they do. A problem of such weight doesn't have a simple fix, so that's why we have come up with a 3-part solution that we believe wouldn't even eradicate inequality, but it would work towards creating equal opportunity for all Americans and therefore give people the potential for social mobility.
First, in order to promote equality, we need to reform existing programs such as affirmative action. But on a bigger scale, civil rights reform. We need to shift mindsets so we all recognize each other as being created equally.
Step 2 is we need to reduce the financial burden of higher education. More grants for students in poverty rather than large loans will increase their ability to move up the scale. because they will have a higher education leading to jobs.
Step 3, plan. We need to plan for success and count on equality becoming a part of our society. Constructing schools and job programs with federal funds would open up the gates and promote equal opportunity. This way, America is collectively looking ahead and leaving its past of inequality behind.
All right, Jalen, I'm gonna start with you, and I'm gonna have you talk to me a little bit about your solution. So you have a 3-part solution. If you, upon looking at your solution and the consequences and implications of it, which of the 3 parts are you least confident in and why?
Least confident, I would probably say reform, only because the systems we have working right now aren't working, like the affirmative action, and like we've talked about that in the previous units that we've done in here, and we've seen how it isn't really benefiting the minorities. So I think that reform would be our least effective one.
Okay. Let's go with Jacob. What advice would you have if you knew another group was going to consider the same topic in the next presentation? What advice would you give them? Like, could it be about research or what?
Well, if they're doing the same format with 3 people, I would definitely do it the way we did, where you broke up each person with a different lens, and then they just focus on that. Because, I don't know, it worked really well. I did economic, she did political, and Jalen did cultural. We all brought it together at the end, and we all had like ideas that were intertwined, and it all kind of worked well.
Okay. So Kaylee, what did you learn that you will use in your next presentation for the real thing? Like what, something about process, something about research, anything?
Well, we did have a lot of time over Thanksgiving break to write our individual papers, which I didn't utilize as effectively as I probably could have. And I think that starting earlier on the project and not, I don't want to say procrastinating, but not, taking advantage of extra time that you have, or that I had, it would make it easier if that did happen. So then we can focus more on the group paper and the presentation.
Okay. Very nice job.